2, 3. Oh, that's not us.
Liz, are the other two commissioners going to be here?
Hey, Kristen. No, Gina and Karina are excused from tonight's meeting, and Pierre Washington is also excused.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think we almost have everyone here.
Okay, thank you.
I think tonight it's Pierre Washington is excused. Right. That's all I've heard. We heard about anybody else in council not being able to make it?
No, Mayor. Everyone else should be here.
Okay.
From council.
Liz, Mark indicates he's in the waiting room. Oh, there's Mark right
there. Right there.
Apparently the link that was sent out an hour ago made me a participant or a guest. So I clicked on another link. Oh. Sorry. I'm sitting here waiting for about 10 minutes, wondering what's going on. So thanks for the text.
Yeah, I find the same problem from time to time. It's there's not a universal way of bringing people into the meeting, I think. Yeah. Okay, I think there's Vice Mayor Abadamas. Good. We're all here.
We are here.
Okay, we have all the PCS commissioners who are able to attend.
Yes, Mayor. We're all here.
So we're ready to start. Very good. Well, I will call the meeting to order. Special Joint City Council and Parks and Community Services Commission for August 30th, 2022. We have a flag for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, one moment.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please. We'll start with City Council, I think. Is that protocol usually?
We can do that, sure. Councilmember Joseph?
Here.
Councilmember Oro?
Here.
Councilmember Washington is excused tonight. Vice Mayor Abadabos?
Here.
And Mayor Garcia?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now for the Parks and Community Services Commission.
Commissioner Griggs, she's excused tonight. Commissioner Mammarell?
Here.
Commissioner Margalotti?
Here.
Vice Chair Cervente is excused. And Chair Einberger?
You're muted.
Chair Einberger? Chair Einberger, I think you're still on mute.
Chair Einberger, wave if you can hear me.
I think as a host, Liz, you should be able to unmute her. If you click on participants, you know how everyone pops
Yes.
up on the side.
Or maybe just a thumbs up to acknowledge that we see you.
Yes, it won't let me unmute her, but I can ask her to, so I'm not quite sure. Let me double check here.
Or maybe just use the call-in phone number, Kristen, because
Mhm.
You could do it in the comments also, Kristen, if you like.
There you go.
You can accept it that way also.
She might be having computer problems.
I think so.
Yeah.
We'll give her a moment to work on that. The next area is public comments and items not on the agenda. Have we received any?
There has been no submitted public comments. We do have 2 people in the audience. If anyone would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand.
It would be on items not on the agenda.
Yes, Mayor Garcia, it looks like we have no public comment at this time.
Very good. Thank you. How are we doing with Chair Einberger?
Looks like she's exited the meeting. She might be trying to get on another computer.
No.
Do we have her phone number? Can someone give her a call?
Yes.
Thank you.
Be good to have a quorum of the Parks and Community Services Commission. There we go. Oh,
I'm sorry, my computer went blank and I
Well,
couldn't see anything. or
we're glad you're back.
talk. Okay, sorry about that.
All right.
Hopefully it won't happen again.
All right. We were just acknowledging that you were present for the meeting, for the recording.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Okay. So we've got a quorum of both City Council and Community Parks Services. And our business item tonight is Park and Community Services Commission Work Plan for fiscal year 2022-23. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and Chair and Commissioners. Thanks for getting together tonight so that our 2 bodies here could sit jointly and talk through this proposed work plan. I'll turn it over to Allie in a few moments, mostly because my voice is still not 100% back. But the main point of tonight is to get back into a routine wherein the council sets forth the work plan for all of its citizen advisory committees, but in particular tonight, the Parks and Community Services Commission. And so this process is part of the 2003 guidelines that the council at the time adopted for the Parks and Community Services, where it outlined the body's purview and really talked about having a work plan that's approved by the council each year. So this is part of the council's directive really to me to make sure that we have a good continuity and connection between the council and its advisory committees, and that everybody's on the same page and working on things that everyone agrees should be working on. So that's the main point of tonight. Ideally, in the future, we'll have this annual kind of coordination work plan meeting a little bit earlier in the year, as it kind of relates to a fiscal plan and a fiscal process. We start on July 1st. So we adopt a budget usually in June. So really, we ought to be doing this probably in the late springtime. April would probably be the appropriate time. So early May, so in that kind of time frame would be the appropriate time to have the council and its advisory committees sit and kind of talk through a work plan for the upcoming year. So as we get back into this routine, that's what you could expect for the future year. But we're here tonight to talk about the rest of the fiscal year, although we're 2 months into that now. So with that, I'll turn it over to Allie, and you can maybe talk about the process that got to where we are as it relates to the draft work plan.
Thank you, Jason. So like Jason mentioned, that we wanted to try to draft a work plan to present to you this evening to talk about all the projects and initiatives that we would like to focus on for fiscal year 22-23. So myself, we met on June 9th. I met with the commission and we were able to draft our work plan. And the items that are listed in the work plan, they are all equally important. They're not less important than any of the other ones, but we did try to arrange it and prioritize our work so that way we could focus on particular items throughout the year to try to streamline our process and be more productive. So the idea is that the first two items we would try to complete within the first half of the fiscal year, and then the next two items we would try to complete in the second half of the fiscal year. And the reason why we prioritize it that way is because item one, we're kind of already working on. That is where it is going to be the playground and equipment updates and relocation. We've kind of already started that process. One would be the skate park relocation discussion that we had back on August 3rd with PCS. We reviewed all the 4 potential locations where we would like to relocate that skate park, talked about all the different unique things that each of those locations provided. And PCS was able to come up with a recommendation that we will be presenting to City Council on September 6th for the skate park relocation. The other part of this is the playground project that we're trying to do for the 3 playgrounds, the replacement projects for Via Bellagio, Linwood, and Northampton. This is a project that we started a while ago, and we're trying to finalize the details of what that playground equipment would look like in the scope of the project, as well as the budget and where that money is going. I plan to have that ready to go and present to PCS in October with a recommendation from them to present to City Council that following month, or hopefully right there soon after, so we can make a decision and get this on the books, because we do want to get it completed this fiscal year. Item 2 is it's going to be more of a discussion and a review of the fee philosophy. We really want to try to get that completed for this department. And we found that that was something that had a lot of our programs and services tied into that. And so really understanding what our fee philosophy is for the department, as well as establishing a fee policy as well as a fee schedule. So that would be reviewing the work that's already been completed by PCS and by staff, and making sure that it is fitting with our times now and that we can continue to grow with that. So those are the first 2 items. And then the last 2 items, which is going to be the discussion and reimagining of Clark Ranch. We all know that the Eco Center kind of it's been a little talked about a changed location, which is now going to be the courtyard. And so with that, we also have the other project, which is the Outdoor Education Center that we're trying to get completed this fiscal year too, down at the wetlands. And so we really want to just reevaluate the Clark Ranch master plan and look at what was planned and kind of how that's evolved and where we're at, and really try to imagine that space and figure out if there's anything else or any other elements that we would like to provide there or put there to meet the community needs. And then the last one is going to be the Parks and Community Services Master Plan. The last time that this was updated was May of 2012. And then the city also completed a Parks and Recreation Needs Assessment in December of 2015. A lot has changed in these last 10 years when that master plan was developed. And we are expected to continue to grow and change. And so we really felt that this was an opportunity to take a look at that from a fresh set of eyes and see if that master plan fits again with what we're trying to do now, and then what we think we would try to do in the future, so that way that plan could continue to grow with us. So those are the 4 items that are presented to you this evening that the commission was able to identify that they would like to complete this fiscal year. Thank you, Jason.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Allie, and stop my screen share, but if the council or the commission wants me to put those items back up, we certainly can. So at this point, Mayor, I'd suggest whether there are any questions from council, if there are any questions of staff or of the commission, and perhaps have an opportunity for folks here tonight to kind of share their perspectives on these items and add any other color or information beyond maybe what was presented by Ali. At the end of the day, we are looking, Mayor, for
the council, any comments or questions, thoughts you'd like to share at this point? I see Councilmember Joseph. Councilmember Joseph.
Yeah, more a clarification. Ali, you were talking about some of the playground and equipment upgrades. You talked about the skate park, Via Bellagio, Linwood, and I thought there was a third park. I just zoned out. So,
Northampton.
Northampton.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I certainly have comments, but for right now, I just wanted to ask some clarification remarks, and then we can switch to comments. So thank you.
Any other raised hands from the City Council? Want to go ahead and the comments or questions from commissioners?
Just a quick question on
Oh,
this.
Yes.
We're okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Councilmember Oro.
Yeah. So I got the timelines, Ali, for when this was all done, and I'm assuming, was this done? These discussions had at the June 19th meeting, or was it July 19th, or were we having these discussions throughout the year, and this is the culmination of the recommendation?
So this all started with Jason's original conversation when we started this process of trying to realign both the commission and the committee. So that, I believe, started back in February when I first started the city. And so we started that process of really trying to outline and realigning with City Council and making sure that there was a connection between the committees and the commission with council. This draft work plan, I met with the commission on 2 separate dates. One in May, we met to discuss kind of like a various of things. And we identified the 4 items, and then we met again in June to just finalize what that draft work plan was going to be here tonight, presented to you tonight.
Okay, and I assume that came from input from the commission. Can you tell us, engage a little bit of how much public input that you guys received from this, and how they were involved? And it's okay to say they didn't show up, So.
Yeah, so when we first met in May, we spent quite a lot of time talking about what they wanted to work on. It was a really in-depth conversation and really thoughtful of where we wanted to be. And I felt like at our department, there was a lot of input that was considered from staff of what we had identified of some of the things that we knew that we needed to get done and where we could really utilize as PCS's experience with shaping our department and helping us over the next year. And at the May meeting, I don't recall anybody in person. I think maybe we had a few public comments. In June, kind of the same thing. We were finalizing the work plan, not a lot of interaction or engagement with the community regarding this topic. If anything, I think they were just more supportive that we were talking about what we wanted to do for the next year.
Okay. Thank you.
If I can address that for just a
Go ahead.
minute. Yeah, I think you're right, Director Akita. There weren't people at the meeting, but I think all 5 of the commissioners are really the ears of the community. And so we hear things all the time from members of the community. And so I think this work plan really is based on what we hear, or much of it is based on what we hear from the community.
Yeah, and I just want to be very clear. It wasn't a question that was meant to sound offensive to get a defensive reaction for you. I was just wondering more like at times at council, there's things that people just come out for. And then there's a lot of times people don't come out for anything. And I was just trying to gauge where the public involvement was on this.
I understand.
Other comments? For me personally, I really appreciate all the activities and services that the Park and Community Services Commission has taken responsibility for to serve the community. But I think what would be helpful for us to get a review a scope of work. I mean, what does Park and Community Services work entail? You know, what are the physical, discussion, here's the physical plants, the parks, pool, the activities we have. There's the scope of assigning or the activities that the community participates in. How do we make sure that we got staff there to do that? What's that cost? I mean, because all that impacts the capacity, the bandwidth of the Parks and Community Services to be able to provide what we folks are wanting to have. So I think something that evaluates that. Do we have such a document that, have I missed it somewhere this time?
We did not, pardon me, Mayor, we did not include, I think what you're describing, Mayor, is included in what we call the PCS guidelines. Those were adopted back in 2003. And I think the document describes it. We did not include that in the agenda packet, but it is memorialized there in that document, as well as, more from a bigger picture is what's memorialized in the municipal code. And that is quoted in the staff report.
Yeah. No, I just think it's good to take a look at that. 2003 was a while ago, and we certainly have a lot more demand for services than we had back then. But our capacity to deliver on that, I mean, the staff do an incredible job. I think it's just I want to make sure that we're examining that to assure ourselves that we're not extending our capacity to serve. I think Northampton Park, particularly since it's in my neighborhood, probably one of the first things that's very visible on it as the bench has got a lot of rotted timber in it. So I'm glad to see that done. Wonder at some point, is there an opportunity for a pavilion there? Because I think a little shade would help use of that area. Basketball is very popular over there. It just, and I think it's it's an asset for the neighborhood, but those who come, there ought to be an opportunity for some family gathering, because that happens as well. I'm just thinking maybe down the road we could see where we are in our budget to be able to provide something there. Any other comment from commissioners or council? Okay. Mark, go ahead.
Are we moving over to comments and suggestions, or should we wait and let some of the commissioners make their comments first?
Councilmember Joseph, if you don't mind, I mean, I think we got the clarifying questions, and if the commissioners don't have initial comments, we'd love to hear public input, because I do too have some input that goes beyond just a clarifying question.
Sounds good. I would defer to either the commissioners or the public.
Anything from commissioners? Kristen, you're muted again.
Are there any public comments, Liz?
There are no public comments at this time.
Are there any comments from the two absent commissioners?
No, Chair Einberger, they did not submit any comments for review.
Okay. And the other commissioners that are here, do you have any comments?
I would just jump in and say, I know we did spend a lot of time on this. There's a pretty large list of items that have been discussed over the years. So narrowing it down to a smaller list was what our focus was when we met. And we did spend quite a bit of time talking about it. And these seem to be the items that were the highest priority from the larger list. So that's why we came to this particular list that we have right here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We did a lot of narrowing down. Excuse me, there were a lot of things that we would love to achieve, but we were realistic, or we thought we were realistic in what we chose. Any other commissioner comments?
None for me. I echo Commissioner Margolati's comments.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, well, thank you. No, I just, robotics, that's certainly an area of interest for a lot of our younger kids, people in, I think it's starting in middle school, and an opportunity to tour the campus first day of school. And it was mentioned about the robotics club and how active they are all the way up into American Canyon High School. We can provide quality of service with the resources we have, but I think when things like that arise, and it says to us, well, how big an interest is this? It's something we need to put into the work plan, and what resources do we have to cover costs and materials that might be needed. So, any other questions from panel? David?
Okay, so if that's the case, I think Councilmember Joseph and I are going to come in. So I'm going to give you my big comments on this. First of all, thank you all for the work and thank you for the thought of putting this in. I'm actually totally sold on 3 out of the 4. And then we'll have questions on the third one. I'm sold on the playground equipment upgrades and relocation. I think that is in process right now. I would challenge us to see if there's something else that we can do with other parks around town. Vice Mayor Abadamas has talked a lot about the West Side parks. We've got 2 of them over there that are done. Linda, what is the actual name of it behind the adult activity center?
Linwood.
Linwood, yes. Linwood's a good start, and then Northampton, which is highly visible and highly used, is a good start too. I know there's been requests in the community to put together disabled playground equipment. I don't know if that's part of the process, but I think it would be worthy, and it would show some leadership within the community. If you guys could address that, that would be helpful. Would love to see that happening. And then there's all
if I could, oh, sorry.
If I may finish, well, you can come after that, after I finish with this. And then there's also those little parks on the trails, the ones that are in between the courts. That would be great. And I think it starts to catch up over there on the west side if we get that, because there's Kimberly, there's the gosh, what's in the corner over there? Gadwall Park, others that are over there that make it a little bit more modern, and it starts to balance out. We can then tackle that big thing in the middle called creatively called Community Park 1 and 2, but that's shifting. But let's save that for another night, another time. I would say, too, I appreciate the fact that this is narrowed down to just 4 things. I know you probably got it down to 3. The fee philosophy, would love a revisit of that, and I think you guys, your work on that would be great. I know we're probably low on a lot of things, and we need to catch up with the times. Wanted to go to the update on the Parks and Community Services Master Plan. Yeah, I haven't looked at it in a while. I should probably look at it. I'll wait until you update it and then make those recommendations and look for that. So that's really cool, because I think we're transitioning as a city to where there's a new phase coming here, where you see it happening all around you. Investments in Broadway, investments in Watson Ranch. 5 years from now, we're gonna have a bunch of new residents asking for new services and things like that. And so that would be cool to have. The only question that I pause on is the implementation of the Clark Ranch Master Plan. When I first got on council, I was like, let's go for it. And then all of a sudden they said, well, you ain't got the money. So it's gonna be a while. And it was a classic sort of thing where American Canyon put together a great plan and then let it collect dust on the shelf. And the dust is pretty thick right now, and we should probably clean that up. I just don't know if there's some incremental things that we could do to actually show some success. At the council meetings, we talked a lot over the last 4 years of doing big things like Broadway district specific plan, Watson Ranch, the Green Island area. Discussions now within the council, what are the smaller things that we can do well? improving our parks, improving the road safe way, things like that. I feel like Clark Ranch Master Plan is a big thing, but there's nothing small in it that we can get done. I would love for you to prove to me the other way that there's something that we can get done along the way, and I think that would be worthy. And finally, for me, the last thing I would say is I would love, and this may not be part of this commission, but I would love to see improvements on our bike transportation system here in American Canyon. I feel like that's something that we can actually really do pretty quickly, highly visible, very beneficial. If we can get more people, particularly students and parents, out of their cars to travel around locally, it'll go a long way to making it better around here. Those are my comments. Would love to hear more. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Meredith, if you wouldn't mind, I just want to respond real quickly. What Councilmember Orr was talking about on Clark Ranch, we do have part of that already underway. We have a grant already for kind of a phase 0 of Clark Ranch. This is an outdoor education grant, and involve a restroom, a 3-season canopy, education gardens area. It's on the south side of the road, west of the parking lot. So that's kind of a phase 0. What was really intended by this third bullet point is not actually really captured. The word implementation kind of short changes. I think what was contemplated, we do have the phase 0 of Clark Ranch. That's the design and construction of that outdoor education piece. So that's the implementation part, but it's also kind of recognizing that what you hit on is that the master plan has been gathering dust, and in of itself won't look much like anything when it actually gets implemented, like was in the original plan. We're not going to have an eco center there. We're not going to have Napa Wildlife Rescue. And so what we meant to capture by that bullet point was, we are going to be doing a small thing, restrooms, 3-season canopy. So that is part of the plan, but the rest of it needs to be reimagined. And so that was what was meant by that phase.
Yeah, thank you. And Councilmember Ora, I also want to address the disability, what you mentioned about disabilities. That's a huge thing for us on PCS, and we've talked about it over and over, and really plan to make some big recommendations on that. It's a big focus for all 5 of us. So yes, we're on the same page.
Just quick comment regarding the playground equipment, specifically, with an eye toward helping our residents, especially those children on the spectrum and disabled. Where that's actually a point where we are getting public comment from residents, and we're very. We want them to be very much involved in the process. So yeah, just underscore that is a focus for PCS.
I think Mark had a hand up next.
Yes, thank you. First of all, by way of introduction, I want to thank everybody for this joint session, and I think it's something important that we should do, not with just the PCS, but with Open Space and Planning Commission. And the idea that we do it on an annual basis is a great idea for me. So I'm glad that is happening. Getting specific into the 4 elements on the playground equipment and upgrades, if I can add my 2 cents worth on Linwood, because of that amphitheater-like area, that has the bricks and all that, just as a suggestion, that might lend itself to a nice outdoor amphitheater, a little, theatrical stage kind of thing. So that's something to think about. The other one is more of a generic comment, and that is, I know that we literally have millions of dollars of park improvements that we don't have the money to accomplish. But something we might be able to do are some smaller projects. For example, our parks crew did a wonderful job along Wetlands Edge with in-house crew and materials. And I think if we look at our operating budget, we might be able to do other similar arrangements where you might clean up a flower bed and spruce it up. And granted, it's not replacing playground equipment, but it does put, you know, a nicer, fresher look on an existing park. And it might at least get you a little bit of time before we can accumulate the money to do the big stuff. So that's just a suggestion that we might want to consider. On the Clark Ranch, I like the idea that we're going to take some small steps. I'd like to suggest that the native plant angle of the grant give some thought to whether or not it makes sense to create our own little in-house nursery that we might be able to produce drought-resistant or native plant species in enough that it could become, you know, the inventory that we produce for some of those park improvements. I think it would be a great way of probably saving some money over purchasing the products, and B, it'd be a neat angle to say these were grown, you know, these are really native species because they're native to our very community. So that's something to think about as we integrate that grant in there. A couple of other areas is maybe increase the amount of parking at Clark Ranch. It fills up whenever there's any event, and if it's a big event, it goes overflowing. If we don't have money for a park or for parking, we might want to consider meeting with the school district to talk about a reciprocal parking arrangement. I mean, Napa Junction obviously has some parking. We have some parking. I'm sure they have an overflow event. We certainly would. Maybe we can work out something and give that to the 2x2 committee after we work out the land swap and every other problem we have, then we can knock this one out too. So that's another suggestion. And then my last one would be a picnic shelter at Clark Ranch. I think there's 2 or 3 picnic tables there kind of sitting by themselves. If we could expand that with a nice shelter, barbecue pit, make it a really nice venue, I think it would really enhance the park side of it, the south end. The north end, you know, is going to take some rethinking, but the south end, I do think we can do a lot of stuff to really make that element of the park pop. And neighborhood watch, but encourages neighborhoods to beautify their neighborhoods, or just, you know, block parties, or create two-way communications where staff and electeds can meet with the neighbors on a regular basis, and just try to create some engagement by getting down to the level of our neighbors instead of asking them to show up at City Hall. It's just something that's been sticking in the back of my head, and I just think it might be a good program to try to develop, or at least talk through. So those are my suggestions, particularly on Clark Ranch, and maybe some ideas on that community master plan. But thank you.
Very good, thank you. Got some good suggestions there. I'll share some as well. I'm sure we all have some thoughts to contribute. So I think Kathy, you were next.
Thank you. I just want to clarify the parks that were suggested. I believe it's because there's either grant money or some sort of a measure that actually we had been able to apply for in a timely manner. So that money actually would be for playground equipment. So that's already something that exists, and just wanted to ask that. And I do have another question as well. As far as the fee philosophy, I know that there was a lot of time, I believe, already invested in that. And I believe it was almost at the final stages. I know there was either a consultant or someone that I know we worked with, and I know other staff had worked with as well. So I believe that that's probably almost to completion. It would just be looking at it and going to council. I think that's almost finished. And I believe, and I know I think had a couple of committees kind of looking at the master plan and Clark Ranch, and kind of that process had already been started as well. So I think there's a lot of things that were just kind of, these were like almost ready to be completed, and have it go before council as far as a clarifying questions. Thank you.
Very good. Miriam, you have your hand raised. Just some comments.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And like Councilmember Joseph said, thank you everyone for being here and for the presentation. I just have a couple of quick comments. One is, I thought Councilmember Joseph was going to beat me to it, but I was wondering if PCS can help us find a sustainable funding source for continued park maintenance so that we don't always find ourselves in this position where we have millions of dollars worth of park repairs that we need to do and no money for it. I know Councilmember Joseph has lobbied for this to be put in the budget over and over and over again. I just don't know what it's going to take to actually get it there at this point. So I'm wondering if maybe PCS can help us find that for proactive maintenance of our parks rather than, you know, reactive redoing all of our parks. And then the other thing is I really like the idea of the neighborhood services program. I just wanted to give a second hand to Councilmember Joseph's idea, but I echo what Councilmember Oro was saying as well. So, and everybody else, and that's all.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think the fee survey, I was having a conversation earlier in the year with the shelter in place. You know, everybody's, a lot of depression folks are dealing with over that. And conversation got around, what do we charge for different programs? You know, there's, for example, the pool. We can't cover the entire cost of the pool with fees. It's recognized as a community benefit. People are physically healthy, mentally more healthy. One that I think probably slips below the radar for some people is the community garden. You're outside, you're productive, you have a wellness opportunity. You know, my wife had done that with a number of people. They go out and they just they have a better day. So there's also a mental health public benefit for that. So I know we have to weigh it between what's in our capacity to do things and how much finances we can take care of, and how much the community is comfortable with. There's, you know, some lower income spectrum that's more difficult to cover than those who have more discretionary income. I agree with Mark on the wetlands edge. I mean, that was an incredible job by Public Works, Community Parks, to get that cleared. You know, a lot of those landscaping, a lot of it was dead, declined. It's a visible eyesore. Now, a lot of that's been cleared out. There's wood chips down on the ground there. We're weed covering that. A lot of the growth that had overhang the path someplace, you could narrow it down to one lane. Now that's all been fixed. So my kudos to the staff who had got that all cleared. That it looks very good now. Frankly, when you think of Parks for American Canyon, it's truly a treasure for the whole city. And we do have visitors who use it from time to time as well. They have discovered the Wetlands Edge Trail, and oftentimes we'll take the Wetlands Edge as a walking. That's kind of where I get my steps in during the day. I think something I'd like us to explore with respect to issues of maintenance, adopt a park or volunteer program. I had done that several years ago with, if you're familiar with the common name is goat heads or sticker plant. They're very sharp little puncture vines on it. Looks like corns on a goat. That's why it's called goat head. Puncture a lot of bicycle tires, and they're horrible on dogs' feet. People can't walk that path. So got a group of volunteers. We went out in it's called sheet composting. Lay down a layer of cardboard. You put wood chips on top of it, and that plant can't grow through it. It's just another way of saying, you know, maybe there's a program we can have for volunteers. Adopt a park. You know, look at several around town. Some are not even parks. They're just kind of in the city part of the street. And maybe that could just be a group that come out some Saturday weekend and take care of it. And I do have some folks who raise an interest. They'd be interested in participating in that. So I think we can get creative around that. Got some other comments up. Here's your hands up, Mark.
Yes, a couple of things. Number one, I wanted to second Councilmember Oro's suggestions about the disability park or a parklet area, as well as maybe a toddler-focused park area. I think these are some specialty park areas that I think would be great, that somehow we could identify an area for those. The other one is either a new idea or blended into the master plan, and that is getting the old Napa Junction site. Assuming that land swap goes through, it would be appropriate to at least do some conceptualizing and some brainstorming just to see what kinds of uses could be used, you know, and where can we go with that new facility. So, you know, like I said, I don't know if that's a separate item or if that's something that gets folded into the master plan, but I think it's something we need to start talking about in the very near future, because I think it's an exciting opportunity for all of us. And I'm kind of partial towards the recreational side of the potential more so than maybe other uses, but it ought to be something to focus on. Thank you.
Well, there's certainly recreational park activity there as well. I think that was years ago, that was Kiwanis Club Napa put that together. They did parks, playground equipment all over town. So, you know, we have a piece of that currently there. So certainly for the residents that will be occupying the housing that's being built on Oat Hill and down below it, be very attractive for them. Miriam, comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two more comments. One is I wanted to clarify my comments from before. I'm hoping that in addition to looking for a funding source for park improvements, continued park improvements, we can also look for a funding source for Clark Ranch, because although it's exciting that we did get some funding and we do have some stuff happening there, we kind of got the community all excited. Like Councilmember Oro said, everybody was super excited. We have this great plan, but then it's just sitting there collecting dust. And the longer that we take, the more that this plan is going to morph, and we're going to deliver something that the community did not expect at the end of the day, because the input that was given is not going to look like what we actually get them. And then the other thing is, in response to Councilmember Joseph, you said toddler stuff, which I totally agree with, especially nowadays. But I think we already have toddler focused play structures at the Shenandoah Park. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm new to this parenting thing, but it looks like the little seesaw and the train are toddler focused, right?
Raised toddlers there.
You did? Okay, so we do have toddler stuff. Mark doesn't have any young enough children to know that though, so it's okay.
In my defense, my toddlers are grandkids who live in Fresno, so I may be a little irrelevant on that area. So,
well, my grandson visiting from Antioch certainly enjoys the playground, so and he's free.
Yeah.
So.
But strongly agree with the disability play structures and making our parks more disabled accessible.
Very good. Other comments? Thoughts, ideas to share?
Mayor, if I may, I want to talk a little bit about old Napa Junction School. It does look like the land exchange is going to go forward. Fingers are still crossed, but it looks like next week we'll put the finishing touches on that. In the very near term, you know, we have some ideas about how to be able to reprogram some of that place. But I think what Councilmember Joseph was referring to is the bigger picture there, that property and the adjacent property at the Little League. And so I think what we ought to do as it relates to that bigger picture, that is a big community conversation. We've already, you know, really committed to having a community conversation on that possibility. Is I think we actually need to sit down with the council and talk about really the land use ideas. We have two public serving properties, or will have two public serving properties, total of 15 acres. And we're going to need to evaluate before we land on and finalize the zoning being forever public and starting to master plan a public use. I think we do need to evaluate what is the economic development opportunity there. Is there an economic development opportunity we want to pursue? Is there a zoning we want to change and pursue that, evaluate what that looks like, and then make a decision if we want to keep the zoning the same or make some changes. And so we'd want to first start with that conversation and then solidify that and say, look, if we do want to keep it as a future public location, now we need to have this community conversation on what that looks like and gets reconfigured and of course, the funding and implementation of all that. So my suggestion for addressing that idea from council would be to first bring more of an economic development conversation to the council as we look at zoning and we look at, should we be considering opportunities there or leave it as the public zoning that it is. So I guess that's a long way of saying I wouldn't add that particular topic to the work plan for this fiscal year, because I think there's some conversations we need to have first about deciding what its future is going to be. And then we could probably look at doing that for the next fiscal year as far as the big picture. Meaning the next work plan from PCS.
Appreciate the comment. Yeah, that's something we should look at all aspects of that property.
Right.
What would be the maximum benefit to the city, and what possibilities could be to put things together.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other comments or thoughts? Any public comment to this point? Anybody tuning in?
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Please raise their hand.
We'd like to hear from you.
Doesn't look like we have any public comment at this time, Mayor.
Okay. Any other thoughts to share for this evening's meeting?
Just kind of process question. So we've had this dialogue and council input and some commissioner input. So the next step is eventually the PCS is going to come to the council and say, okay, here's the playground equipment upgrade and relocation. Here's our recommendations. Here's our fee philosophy and so forth. What are the next steps, I guess?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question, Councilmember Joseph. We first tonight want to memorialize this work plan through a minute order. So that's the recommended action tonight by the council. And then each of these items themselves are generally going to relate in some sort of policy document that would be hopefully eventually approved by the city council. Actually, the first item will really be more implementation and appropriations and that sort of thing. But the second, third, and fourth items are really going to be policy documents. So, they'll be continued to, as it relates to item 1, for example, finalizing of the design of these playground equipments, and then we'll be coming to council with an appropriation. We are looking at the accessibility components at Northampton in particular, and that's beyond what the current budget is in the CIP. And so that's the main reason we'll be going back to council. And of course, there'll be a construction award as well. So number 1 will take the form of an appropriation and really CIP project award, that sort of thing. Items 2 through 4 are going to take the form of continuing to go back to PCS and having them evaluate these policy documents, and then to bring it forward to council for ultimate adoption. So as it relates to number 3, there will be a little bit of an appropriation item, or at least an award item as it relates to the project 0, the phase 0 with the restroom and 3-season canopy. So that's going to be more of a contract award. Potentially, some additional budget might be needed, but that's more of a contract award. But then overall, we'd be looking at the policy document itself, Clark Ranch Master Plan. And that, again, would come in the form of a recommendation from PCS saying, we've looked at these policy documents. We think they should be improved, amended, what have you. And then that would come back to council for adoption. So that's generally how that would work. And then we would, expect to be back in front of council jointly, in next spring, late spring, April timeframe to have a check-in really, and to say, here's what was on our plan this past year, things that were accomplished or not accomplished in that time period. Here's what we'd like to do for the next fiscal year, and have, again, the opportunity for the council to add or subtract or to weigh in the same manner, but a little bit earlier in the budget cycle.
Sounds like a plan to get things accomplished. Very good. Any other thoughts from council members? Commissioners?
And some of the feedback that we've all provided, because the draft minute order just identifies the 4 areas, but some of the feedback that we've gotten from everybody I think is very good, and hopefully that'll be incorporated somehow so that we don't forget it as we go through the process.
It is, and that's the benefit of having whatever 10 or 11 screens, 10 or 11 people on the screen in those memories. So yeah, I don't know that we need to change the minute order per se, but it's that feedback and that additional color and insight, just like we do with council when the council says, you know, we see the words on paper, but here's really what we mean, you know, and staff takes that information and goes and implements it.
Yeah, so I'd like to thank you all for your ideas, for your suggestions. I've taken copious notes, so certainly next time the PCS meets, we'll go over these suggestions and see how we can incorporate them into our plan. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
I'd like to
Mayor.
thank all the participants this evening as well. Good discussion, and look forward to our plans being implemented. All right, have we concluded our work for the evening?
No, I think.
Mr. Mayor, we need to make I'd like to move minute order number 2022 next in order. A minute
Thank you.
order of the City Council of the City of American Canyon approving the Parks and Community Service Commission's work plan for fiscal year 22-23.
I'll second that.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Joseph,
Yes.
Councilmember Oro,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Abadamas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor, or excuse me, Mayor Garcia.
Yes, thank you all.
Now I think we've concluded our business.
Yes, we have. Trying to get things moved along there. Very good. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, before we go, one last thing. I complained a little bit a couple of weeks ago about the transparency portal, and I want to publicly thank staff for getting it all caught up, and it's looking good. And I encourage people to go out there and check it out and find out every little we've spent money in the last several years. So thank you.
Yeah, you know, I recommend it to a number of people to check it out. I think it's a great way for people to begin to understand how the finances work. Not that any of us are going to be CPAs or financial officers, but you know, enough information that if you have a question about it, you can ask it versus you know, being clueless about it. Yeah.
There's one or two of us that find finances and budgeting fun and exciting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I did want to thank staff for getting it caught up, and kudos to Director Akita, because you exceeded your revenue estimate. So good for you. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
So we have concluded our business for the evening. And I would thank everybody for your attendance this evening and the input. Certainly, it's valuable information to share, and to the feedback from those who are on the ground with the community, dealing with it from day to day. And it makes us all a great team to provide the best we can for residents of American Canyon. So thank you all. And we are adjourned. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.